the time I started painting, I have never made a single brush stroke that wasn't what I decided to do. I feel as though I'm protected by the Muse. I mean, she said to me, if you're faithful to me, I will serve you well. And I have been totally faithful to her, and she has served me well. She has guarded me, protected me, made sure that I did not do dreadful things that were wrong, didn't marry the wrong person, never got the wrong job, never lived in the wrong place, never really got the wrong friends. It's all connected to the one thing, and I'm not really that mystical about these things, but in a sense I feel that I was protected, guarded, and it really was like a guardian angel. I really do believe that throughout my whole journey in life, the aging process, which is constant, has never assumed any priority because there was always so much to involve me, so much to be excited about, so much somehow to give myself to. There are great things in life. Life is filled with enchantment, things that have been created by other human beings because they gave their life to these things. You know, it's not easy to paint a good picture. It's not easy to create good poetry, write good books, or do anything, that's really revealing as to the essence of a human being. Maybe I have too much of a genteel attitude about it, but art for me had to do with the contemplative life that, as you know, in music, listening to music, you really have to listen to it, and if you're going to look at a painting, you quietly settle into it. If you want to know a person, you don't expect them to be revealed instantly, and the delight of the endless time that you're together with someone, and every time you're together, another little part of them is revealed. And it's such a wonderful thing, and I felt that's the way it should be with painting. The painting I just started working on, as you perhaps can see, it's kind of a minimal statement. The thing that, well, it's always surprising how they develop. I never really know. I started this actually from the sketch over here, and I thought the sketch was a pretty minimal kind of statement, but the painting has become even more so. So what I do with the drawing, I start with a piece of paper of a certain size. Now, the certain size is very, very crucial because the first 4 lines that decide the size are the first 4 lines of the drawing. I mean, many people that draw do not realize that. I used to say to the students when I was teaching, what size do you want to work on? And they would say, well, I have a pad of paper here. I said, do you mean to tell me that you let the manufacturer of that pad dictate to you your first expression of self? I had gone through this, so I would select a size that I felt expressed by. That was my first statement. What is a line? I had to go through that. What is a line compared to a form? And how thick does the line have to be in order for it to stay a line and not be a form? It's a very interesting. I just got through reading the Paradiso by Dante. And, he, led by Beatrice, he goes to paradise. And she is his guide, and she introduces him to the hierarchy of angels. And he meets all the people that he'd read about in the Bible. And as they ascend, they go up higher and higher and higher into spirituality. And of course, they finally come face to face with God. What is God? I mean, this is an awesome moment because here's a man, written, I guess, back in 1200, is going to tell people what God is. I mean, that's his role. That's why he's writing it, really. And everybody is sitting on the edge of their seat saying, oh my God, what will God look like? What will he be like? It's a point, a non-dimensional point in space. Hey, that's far out. I mean, that is far out, both literally and figuratively. A point in space. And so I had to start dealing with a point in space. What is a point in space? So this whole business of what do I consider to be of value? What is reality? I mean, these almost become philosophical issues. And of course, I naturally would become somewhat intrigued by the journey of the philosopher who is always dealing with these things, and what is truth, and what is reality. I think that's really, in part, what an artist of my kind is trying to do, but at the same time, the artist is not a philosopher. The artist is trying to supply sensuous data so the spectator looking at it can be seduced beyond reason. In other words, they can look at it and say, wow, this is great. I haven't the slightest idea what they mean by that. I'm more able than I ever have been in my life to come out into the studio and say, in looking at the painting, what am I going to do with it? I don't know what to do. It's all done as far as I can figure. And then I sit there, maybe for an hour, and seriously, I can maybe sit there, just sit there in a chair, looking at the painting, and finally I say, maybe this could be a little more, maybe a little more in terms of, you know, a richer color, a softening of edge, a hardening of an edge, just a little more. And in other words, there's a willingness to give over to the mystery of creating something, of not being the one that's in control, of letting it speak to me, no matter how long it takes. If it takes all day, I'll do it. A brushstroke here or there, you know, something happening that you really didn't expect to happen. And you say, oh, yes, wow, that's good. That's wonderful. And, you know, so it goes. It's sort of, it was tough on the nerves in the beginning, because one likes to know what they're doing. In fact, I sort of marvel at the fact that how can a man be painting for his whole life, painting as hard as I've painted, and reach the point at 78 where they say, I don't know what I'm doing. And I really have to say that and mean it and say, you don't know what you're doing. But something knows what you're doing. The you that is deciding these things is not the real you. I mean, all this stuff that's going on out in the world, all this incredible activity, and here I am sitting in the studio saying, should this line be infinitesimally a different kind of curve? Who cares? What difference does it make? Does it make any difference to any life? Any life at all? Ultimately, yes, it does. If it weren't for the fact that some people sit in their studios contemplating the infinitesimal subtlety of certain variations, then we lose sight of human possibility on this level. Soup is a very peculiar combination. I shouldn't use the word peculiar. It's a combination of many things of ancient vintage. I don't recall, in truth. It's got a little of this, a little of that. And, you just have to go by how it tastes. So people talk about, you know, the great things in life. They never talk about cutting up a red pepper as being one of the great things. It is, though, one of the great things of life. When they talk about if you only had a day to live, or a month to live, or a week to live, what would you do? I would do exactly what I am doing now. I would do exactly what I do every day of my life. I really would. I would not be able to do anything else, because that's what I want to do. I want to be acquainted with death. I want to think about it. I want to I would like to die in a good way. I have all the fears that anybody would have about some dreadful illness that you have no control over. It's my intention to disintegrate gracefully. You know, the edges get a little softer and finally everything gets a little blurred and you kind of merge into the background, which you do as you get older anyway. Most people do, and I guess I do too. And finally you're not there anymore. But not many of us have that wonderful luxury of dying the way we would like to. But I think about it a lot. I don't think about it in a morbid sense. I just think about it in terms of accepting it and saying to myself, death is a natural part of life. Surely the horror of dying must be the horror of knowing you haven't lived. And if you haven't been able to love with great generosity and great openness, you haven't been able to live. It seems to me that in order to nourish another life, the giving has to take place. It can only take place if one gathers it into themselves, and then it's given. It's given very naturally. It's not as though you say, well, I'm going to give you a gift. It's just that you give because you are rich enough to give. I mean, lots of people, I think, make the mistake of giving what they really can't give. I mean, they promise to give, they believe they can give, and they cannot. I want to believe that I'm quite realistic about this, that in order to be able to give to people, I have to have something to give. Well, obviously, I'm not talking about material things, which I've never had that to give to anybody. But when it comes to giving of my own richness, all the things that I can create in the world, like this house. I mean, I worked on this house for 3 years, and I worked on it with a vision. And the vision included the fact that it would be a place where people could come, a place where people could stay, a place where people could be fed good food, have good conversation, and be nourished, a kind of a respite from the world. And so the giving aspect, I really think, is thoroughly built into me now. I'm not sure why I haven't pursued more aggressively the act of selling the work. I have made some efforts, and those efforts were a total failure. I'm also a bit of a realist about this. I know very well that I have to commit a large portion of energy to marketing myself. I remembered reading not so long ago that should the artist be expected to do the work, to package the work, to advertise the work, and so on. I mean, it seems I didn't have the capacity. I just didn't. And possibly there's a lot of fear there. Fear of really entering into that aggressive marketplace, fear of rejection. I'm sure that's all a part of it. Would it have made any difference had I, let's say, had become famous? It could have been a considerable distraction from what I really have spent my life doing. I've spent my life doing the thing I wanted to do, which was to paint. Such an interesting difference between drive and talent. Talent is worth very little. All kinds of, these charismatic souls that come into the world that are filled with talent. And the tendency, of course, is to say, oh, what a wonderful life you're going to have. You're going to do all these great things. The chances are they'll give it all up in a few years. Talent doesn't nourish you for very long, but if you've got this drive, this insatiable need to do it, goodness knows why, because it's obviously, in my case, it wasn't based upon recognition. And it certainly wasn't based upon making money. And it wasn't, it was just that I had to do it. And I think if I was going to give advice to any young person who was really into this business of being an artist, I would say that. If you don't have to do it, don't. It'll be torture, it'll be maddening, it'll be filled with disappointment. You'll get angry, you'll say, oh, why didn't I get recognition? Why didn't I get this? Why didn't I get that? when you have to do something, like you have to breathe, you just do it. Just do it. The Muse, which guards my soul, my spirit, seems to be favoring me more, perhaps because I only have a few years to live. She's saying, you better do it now or never, and I'm going to help you as much as I can. So I really feel, more able to push each painting further. If someone 30 years ago had said, you will be painting this kind of a picture in 30 years, I would, inside myself, would have said, I don't want to be painting that kind of picture. That is not the kind of picture I want to paint. But I am painting that kind of a picture because I have to, because that's what I am. And what is it that I am? It's very mysterious. And all I can hope for is that someone looking at the painting will say, wow, that would be enough. No words, just a kind of a sense of, wow, how wonderful. They wouldn't have to say how wonderful, but you hear a bird sing and it does something to your heart. You look at a flower and it's just open, and one is filled with wonderment. That's what I'm trying to do as a painter.